Hey everyone, it's Mr. Who from Heron High School, here to help you figure out how to use Google Sheets or any other technology, Excel, okay, to help you make your data display. Okay, so today I'm going to be covering something I made up, okay, some study I made, okay, that may or may not be applicable. It's just an example after all. But I'm going to cover both the categorical and the quantitative versions of this. So jump to whichever section you feel like will benefit you the most, okay, and I'll talk about some alternatives at the end as well if those two don't fit your needs. Okay, so first of all, we got to go through a couple of universal questions. Okay, so who am I studying? What am I studying? That, of course, is Pokemon. I'm trying to study some Pokemon here. And what am I wanting to know? What do I want to study about them? Okay, well, that depends based on what the category or quantity I'm trying to measure is. So let's go ahead and talk about categorical first, and then I'll go down to quantitative, and then I'll split up into figuring out their displays. Okay, so my categorical question and the options, of course, is how does the Pokemon I am talking about, or I'm asking or looking at, okay, relate to other Pokemon? Okay, does it evolve into another Pokemon? Does it evolve from a Pokemon, or does it not interact with any other Pokemon at all, or is it like unrelated? Okay. The options here being threefold. There's a yes, it can evolve, okay, into a different Pokemon. No, it is fully evolved, so it evolved from something. And finally, unrelated, it doesn't evolve into or from another Pokemon. So those are my three categories. Please try to diversify your categories so it's not just yes or no. Those tend to be very boring graphs. Okay. I want to know a little more about your individual, your sample size, your sample group. Okay. So why do I ask this? Because I want to know the percentage or count of Pokemon that evolve or are fully evolved or happen to have no relation. Okay. So three types there. For quantitative, I decided to ask what is the Pokemon's base stat total? That's something that measures their strength compared to, well, strength quantitatively, rather. So the higher the number, the stronger the Pokemon typically. And what I want to know is how strong are all the Pokemon when they're compared against each other? Which base stats seem to be like most Pokemon having them? So what's the general strength, power level of most Pokemon? Okay, so that's what we'll address in the quantitative side. So for now, if you have any questions about collecting data or anything, please make sure to ask before you get too deep, okay? Before you get too close to the due date, make sure you ask those questions, right? So now I'm going to be moving into the categorical display. Okay, so for categorical display, I have this data. I have collected data on every Pokemon from the first game. So that's 151. You can count them all from Mew all the way to Bulbasaur. So if you know your stuff, okay, this should be easy to parse. If you don't know your stuff, bear with me as I just kind of use it as an example, okay, to create my data. Okay, so first of all, okay, I recorded their name or their Pokedex number. Those both serve the same purpose. Okay, it lets me know what individual corresponds to what category. All right, and you don't necessarily have to do that. Okay, like if you're just measuring what's the general favorite color or what's your favorite fast food restaurant, the name of the person answering is not usually that important. What is important is the counts. Okay. Now, when I did this, okay, I labeled each of them having a yes or no. Okay, there's a couple of unrelated down there. Remember, those are the three categories I set for myself in this question. Okay. So this is a nice way to compile it. All right. Your data may not look the same as this for sure, depending on where you got it, or if you only cared about counts, okay, per category, and you didn't care about who you were asking, okay, like not particularly, okay, then you will have a different data that looks like that. When you want to make a graph in Google Sheets, okay, and in Excel as well, you want to go to Insert, okay, and there should be a chart option. You just want to click that, okay, and it will automatically fill in, okay, a chart for you, okay, based on what your data is. So in this case, it sees I have three options across all of my data. It categorizes them very nicely into they call it a column chart, but it's the bar chart, the bar graph. Okay? So if you want to change your graph, you want it to look not the same, okay? You're like, okay, I didn't want a bar chart, I actually wanted a pie chart. That's an option too. You just drop down this chart type in setup and say, okay, I actually wanted a pie chart. So here we go. All right. And then it will tell you here's the breakdown of your data. Okay. And they do it automatically, so there shouldn't be any need for manual math here. All right. Let's go back to the column chart for a sec, though. Okay. Go back to the column chart for a sec. So let's say I want to make this, column bar chart. Okay. Remember, you do need two, so eventually you might have to make a second one with the pie chart anyway, especially if you're talking categorical. But for now, I need to figure out does the graph display everything we talked about in the notes? That what makes a good bar graph? Okay. Does it have a title? Well, it does, but this doesn't look like exactly what I was going for. Okay. Now, this is important because Sheets and Excel will just kind of take from the data you put in. So this is literally just the column name here. It is not actually the thing I'm trying to study. Okay. What I'm trying to study here, or what I'm trying to present, is the Pokemon and their evolution status. Okay. And I guess I didn't capitalize any of those, but probably would be nice. Okay. And their evolutionary, I guess I'll put evolutionary family status, because we're really trying to measure how many of them are related to each other. So I'll do Pokemon and their evolutionary family status. All right. So next, you'll want to hit up your not vertices, axes. Okay. So same thing. You can just double click, but you can just kind of ask them right there, and then we can call this the can the Pokemon evolve. That can be right there. Okay. Can the Pokemon evolve? Innocent question. You have yes, no, unrelated. Okay. So of course, unrelated meaning they don't evolve into or from anything. All right. Finally, you might notice that this axis on the left has the numbers but doesn't have the label. So in order to add that, you can either click it, right click, okay, and it will let you kind of figure out vertical axis title on your own. And it'll always pop up in the right side here. Vertical axis title, I want it to be the count, I guess individual count. Individual count. And then it should automatically fill that in for you. Okay. Remember, this is just making the graph part. When you actually put it into the presentation, I don't need any of the raw data. I just need the graph. Okay. I need to analyze the graph. All right, so far I've got a pretty nice looking bar chart. Okay, pretty nice looking bar graph. I've got a title. I've got labeled axes. I got categories with no touching. Okay. I even have kind of this scale going on. If you want to mess with all this other stuff, feel free to do so. There's a legend category, but we don't really need that for this kind of graph. You will need one for the pie chart, which I'll be making in a sec. Okay. You can even change kind of the grid lines and ticks if you really want to. Mess around with it, kind of figure out what you want to go for in terms of making it pretty, making it presentable. Okay, this isn't the customize. A lot of weird noises happening right now. Please excuse that. Okay, so that's the categorical bar chart. Okay, in a nutshell. All right, so I'll go ahead and continue on here with categorical real quick. I'm going to make a pie chart. Okay, a pie chart. So let's go ahead and insert chart once more. It'll pop up the chart editor here. And this time I want to make it a pie chart. So here's the second suggested chart there. Go ahead and click that. And this is already a pretty nice looking pie chart. It ain't perfect, but we can always mess around with it to make it fit our needs. Okay. Scroll down so I can have a little more space to work with. Okay. So now you do need to change the title once more. The title doesn't really make sense here, so I'll change it here. I'm going to call it percent of Pokemon regarding their relations. Okay, so kind of, talking more about how do they relate to other Pokemon, or if they do at all. Okay. There's also a bunch of R's in there. PPRR, good alliteration. All right, so it's already kind of looking nice. Okay, but maybe you don't want it to display like this. Maybe you want to make it a little better. You want to customize it. Okay, so again, this is all up to your personal preference. If you want to mess around with it, I highly suggest just toying around with it over here. Okay, but you can actually apply a legend if you want. Okay, it says auto, okay, but you can make it move around. You can either say there's no legend, top legend, bottom left, right, labeled. Okay, like if I put it to the left, it will actually show me the colors, and then it will take away the percents. Well, how do I get the percents back? Well, you go to pie chart, and slice label is what you're looking for, and you definitely want percent. You could also put value and percent. Okay, so if you put value and percent, that's also doable. So you can see here that 70 Pokemon do evolve into other Pokemon. That's about half the field. There's 151 of them after all. 25 aren't related at all, which is a very big chunk. Okay? About 1/6 of the field. Okay. You don't want value percentage, you can just say percentage. Okay, that's totally fine if you want to display that to other people. There's also an option for donut hole. So what you can do is you can cut out the middle part, which is kind of interesting, but mess with it if you want. I don't really think it's necessary though. Okay. And other, pieces of it is the pie slice. You can say, okay, what's my color? You can change that. Okay, you can change the color of this one too if you want. all kinds of options for you to mess around with the pie chart. Okay. So distance from center, that's like if you want to cut it out. Okay, this looks kind of awkward, so I probably wouldn't do it. Okay. You want to keep it as one whole pie, I think. We're not trying to eat the pizza slices here. We're trying to keep it all to presentable and But mess with this stuff if you want. Okay, setup is like just the basics of getting it into the form, and then customize is really where you want to work with it and see if you can get something you want to present. Okay. And that's everything for categorical. Those are the two main ones. If you're doing a Venn diagram, okay, you will probably need to find a different software for that. Either you can find one online, some other program online, or you might want to draw it out by hand first and then try to do it on like a poster paper, present on that. Because as it is right now, mostly Venn diagrams don't really work too well in Google Sheets. Like if I click on this, I try to scroll down, I really don't see any Venn diagrams here. I see something called a gauge chart. That's pretty similar looking, but I don't think that's a Venn diagram. There's something called bubble chart, but I can guarantee that it's not the same as a Venn diagram also. So that's everything for categorical. Now we're going to move on to the quantitative. All right, and we're back with quantitative. So with quantitative, remember I'm measuring their base stats or their measure of their strength compared to everyone else. Okay, so what I've done is I've kind of compiled all this information. If you want to search it up yourself, you want to say, where did Mr. Who get these numbers? They're coming out of nowhere. Okay, all you gotta do is type in Pokemon BST, and then it should take you to a search result that will tell you what you need to know. Okay, I didn't pull these numbers out of my butt. They came from somewhere. All right, so what these measure, of course, is the strength of the Pokemon overall, how well they fare in battle, based on the total number of stats they have. Okay, and so again, we go ahead and click the very famous insert chart button. Okay, and it gave us this nice chart. Okay, now it's messy right now because I haven't fixed it. Okay, but you can tell that it's trying its best to put in every possible data point. Okay, trying its best to put in every possible data point. All right. You can even do this little thing with at least quantitative anyway. If you want to organize your data, you can use this filter to kind of organize your data. Okay. So in this sense, I could say, okay, I want lowest to highest right here. And then it automatically reorders it. Okay. If I want to do it from lowest to highest, lowest, then there's that. Okay, Mewtwo's at the top. Obviously, Magikarp's like way down here. If you know Pokemon, then that makes sense to you. And this is the reason I included the Pokedex numbers, so I can actually sort them back into their original order. Okay, so this is the order as they appear in the Pokedex. Now, obviously, if you were looking at the graph, it looks terrible because you can't see anything. I can only see names sometimes, and most of them are omitted. Okay. Well, obviously, we're going to have to change that. So let's change that chart here. Let's click on this. Click Edit Chart. Okay. Bar chart's definitely not going to work. This is not categorical, so let's go ahead and pick a quantitative. Now, if you're using a dot plot or a stem plot for your primary way to present your data, you think your sample size is small enough for that, you are probably going to have to find another program again, because Sheets doesn't really support stem plot or dot plot there, unfortunately. The closest they get is like scatter plot, but you definitely don't want that because this looks like a mess. Okay, so you definitely don't want that. All right. What you can do, however, is you can do histograms. Okay, now histograms, remember, are the kind of, they sum up, okay, our quantitative data very nicely. And lo and behold, that looks much nicer to look at. Okay, that is much nicer to look at. However, the scale is all weird. Okay, so when you do histograms and Sheets, it auto fills your bins. It auto determines how big your bins, your slices are. Okay. So you definitely want to hit up Customize. Okay. You want to click on Histogram. Okay. And what we were looking for here is bucket size. So bucket size will let you change what the size of each bucket is. Now, this is a pretty large range. It goes from 170, 195 maybe, to about 680. So I would say a 50 bin size is more appropriate. And of course, that definitely looks the same, but slightly, more complete. If you want to use a custom size, you can type it in. You can do like 100. Okay. Type it in that way. These are just the presets that you could follow. Like I can even do 150 if I wanted to. Okay. But a fair warning, the bigger your bins get and the more things you fit in them, the less, complete the data looks. Okay. What you're trying to present there no longer resembles your raw data. So I'm going to go back to doing maybe like 50. It's still a little too many categories, so I'll actually go with like, a 75 bin size. How's that? 75 bin size, that sounds really good to me. And you can even like start somewhere with your, I think, horizontal axis. You want to set a minimum value for yourself. Remember, our minimum value was 195. So I guess I'm going to set my minimum value to be about 180. Okay. And then it will automatically resize your thing, right? And so, again, it's still counting up by 75s, but it ends off nice and clean at that 700 point. You can tell that right here, there's only one point in there. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a way for you to actually display the counts. Okay. You'd have to count it, manually using the axis here. So that is a little unfortunate. But if I do find something out, I'll include it in the description below here. All right. Now, again, you have the same issues as you did before with the categorical stuff. You do have to change the name. Okay. So here we go. This is going to be a BST comparison across 151 Pokemon. So that's my title. I'm comparing all of my base stat totals, the BSTs of all my Pokemon across this data set. Okay, and you can use this to describe the stuff as well, but the axes are also wrong. So let's change that. This should be base stat total. Okay, and that's BST. That's just in regular points. Okay, there's not really a unit for it. And then on the side here, you got to mark this as frequency, okay, or the count. And so that is, a properly labeled histogram here. They are pretty much touching. Okay, I would say they're not always touching, but you can also change the color here if you want to like a different color. You can mess around with that. All right. Legend again. There's an option for legend. I don't think you really need this because there's only one category to legend, so you probably don't need that. It's not like categorical, right? But you can also mess with this stuff again and kind of see how it all works together. But this is probably something I would be okay with seeing. It's a histogram. It's got title, axes, bars touch. Okay, I've got appropriate bin sizes, etc., etc. So definitely, if you got questions on the histogram stuff, hit me up. And again, if you're trying to use a quantitative display that isn't the histogram, maybe try doing it by hand, or maybe try to look up some other programs on the internet to help you out there. Okay. This has been Mr. Who. Hopefully you learned a lot. Okay, if you needed to use sheets or not. Of course, some alternatives. Okay, if you're still not really comfortable using the sheets, you don't really want to mess with that noise. Okay, you can always still do it by hand. Okay, a hand-drawn graph on like a piece of poster paper with nice graphics and everything. Okay, and always make it a little. You show yourself a little creativity there. You can kind of sketch it out and send it to us to kind of figure out whether that's something that we would accept for the credit or not. Okay. Again, you do need two displays. So what you can do with this anyway is that this is one histogram of the data. Okay. But if you wanted to, you could also just like make another one of these, okay. Another histogram. Okay. And this time it actually recognized it was a histogram. Okay. But instead, I will kind of change this, okay, to be 50s. Okay. So this way you can kind of see a comparison between the two displays, okay, where one maybe values like, well, actually I need to change this so it's a little better here, but horizontal axis, I want to start it at 180 yet again. Okay. So again, if you wanted to do it this way, okay, I can set the maximum value to be like 730 because that's where our final bin lands at. So in this way, you can kind of see there's nothing in between there, right? But over here, there's like something definitely here in that bin. So the way these data are displayed, even though it's displaying the same data, you can kind of change the way it displays with two histograms, okay? So when we say two data displays, it's not necessarily saying you have to commit to two different types. Okay? You can commit to the same type, just display it a little differently, and then see how maybe that could help push your information, your presentation. Okay. Again, you'd have to change all this stuff. At least it did say it was a histogram this time, which is kind of a step up. All right, if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them in email or anything like that. Happy hunting on all your data, and we'll see you on Friday. I'll probably recommend this video to you on Friday if you haven't watched it already. Thank you.